Hello everyone, welcome to another video. This is the second of subscriber series, season 2. This artist is called JB. They sent me their tune to work on and see what we can do. And overall, I think this is just going to be a case of finding the little elements that can talk to each other for call and response. So that's going to be one of the first things that I'm working on. Just getting some organisation, familiarising myself with the stems, and then we'll get into it. Let's go. Okay, so that's the session all organised and ready. I'm going to look at the drums first, I think, to see what's up with those. Because I noticed in here, if we just have a listen to this, the main break that's doing a lot of the work. It's good break and everything, but the one thing I'm noticing is the kick lasts for ages. And while it brings tone and ambience and vibes, it's also going to subtract clarity. So I'm going to try and bring that extended kick down a bit, so it just feels like the bass isn't in the whole break all the time, and that's going to leave a lot more room for the subs. So we'll try and do that with Shaperbox and see what we can get with this break, but not lose the vibe as well. It's a tricky balance, but we'll try and find it. And the idea is at the top of the break, shuffles, the hats and everything, it just plays as normal. But the low end, there's just a little bit for the kick and a little bit for the two snares. But it just comes in when we need it, and there's about 60% mix. So we'll try to see if we've cleaned up the break but not lost the ambience and the vibe. Yeah, I think that's going to be okay once we get processing it a little bit more. That'd be cool. We'll see what happens. With this plugin, I was just noticing that the kick and snare weren't balanced. So it felt like the kick was little and the two snares were much bigger. So hopefully that levels that out just a little bit. I'll mix that back just a touch. So I'm just noticing this top end, there's not much dynamics. It's all a little bit flat. So I'm going to try and just enhance that with this Shaperbox just a touch. Okay, I think that's it for the first little break. We'll try it before and after, make sure I haven't ruined it. But hopefully this will be a little bit cleaner when all the other elements are added now. Yeah, I think with all the other elements, that's going to sound really nice at the end. One thing to notice, when you bring kicks in with breaks, you have to really be aware of the phase. You can see these are pretty well aligned, but there's definitely room for improvement with how well they gel. If I just show on here, I'm looking at this like specific bit on this kick drum without the kick. We can see that the break has already got a nice shaped kick drum, there's no phasing. But then when we add this kick later, points like subtract from the kick and adds at other points. Because it's doing some subtraction and some addition, it's not helping our kick a whole bunch. I'm looking out for that stuff. So I'm going to try and process up this new kick we've just added so that it doesn't cause phase with this old kick, and see if we can get it really punching together. So hopefully you can see this now. I'm just using a delay. I'm just delaying it by a couple of milliseconds. But if you get it right, you can get the two kicks to hit in phase. So I'm looking at this kick here and trying to move the time until it aligns really nicely. I think that's the one. Now what we've got is just two kicks that hit together and don't cause an issue. Just getting the phase right, the timing right on those can be really important. Okay, let's try and get these two breaks to feel like they're talking to each other. So I think what's nice about these breaks now is they're consistent. They've got room for other elements, but they've still got all their character and vibe at the same time. Let's bring in these other elements. So I'm just hearing that these two cymbals, they're kind of clashing with the hot pants a little bit. So it might be good just to bring in the hot pants as a side chain, just to give a little bit of room in the top end, because it's getting all built up a little bit too much. Yeah, so those little EQs are just getting these crashes. They're still in there, they're still nice and loud, but they're not being completely ruined by the breaks, and they're not clashing anymore or masking each other. So one thing I'm noticing here is there's about a good 16 bar loop or whatever, but then it just keeps repeating after that, and there's no like subtle variation. So that's probably the next thing I'll do, is try and find a way to keep the drums varied and moving and just developing very, very slightly over time. Okay, so that's kind of it for the variation, where you can see we've got like the reverb just coming in and out really tiny bit. There's a little bit of flanger, a little shaker comes in, some pitch changes and some extra flanging and phasing stuff, but it's all super subtle. And what's happening is, instead of you just hearing the same break over and over, there's tiny little edits happening the whole time, and that can really add to the interest of the tune. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Time for the bass. Yeah, I think that just is a more copy of the bass, so I'm going to try and make that into just the harmonics that I want to bring out. I'm just noticing in this sub there's some clicks and pops, so we'll try and remove those really quick. Still needs a little bit of top harmonics and air, so it'll cut through in the mix. So I think that bass is sounding pretty cool, nice and consistent. We just listen to the low end on its own, see how it sounds, see how, if it's clean. Okay, so it's pretty clean, but I'm noticing the kick doesn't bang through at all in the low, so you might need to add a little punch to the kick to get it to really thump. So if you look here, you can see that the kick low punches in quite nice. I think we'll get it a bit more in the mid-range as well now. If we take out the serum kick, you can see it's all there, but it just needs that little bit of extra push just to come forward and feel like the kick drum really bangs in. Right, let's bring some of these musical elements in and get these layered up. Okay, so that's all the elements in for this little loop anyway. And I think the main thing that's happening is that I'm noticing, one, it's not incredibly clear what is calling and what's responding. So I need to make some room for that call and then response to be really clear. The second thing is that everything has got these big reverb tails. And while that's cool for some things, if everything's got big reverb tails, it just sounds like a big verby mess rather than like clearly defined ideas that are coming in and out. So I think that's the two things I'm going to try and do. Okay, this is the call and this is the response, but you don't get this responding because the bass harmonic is masking it. So we need to get this bass harmonic to move out the way so that when this rip comes in, so that the top end differentiates a little bit more for me anyway. Yeah, then the tail of this is really impacting this lyra, so that's got to come out the way. That reverb lead is awesome, but all of these things can't be in at the same time as this reverb lead because that's massive and all of this other stuff is too much clashing. So I'm going to maybe group these and just sidechain it to that reverb lead out of the way. That could be cool. But then by the time we get to the tail of this one, we want that to get a little bit thinner so that these ones can come back. We're just a little call and response between these things. I also think maybe this bass could move out the way of that little reverb lead as well, just to clean that up. Okay, I'm a bit stuck here because these two definitely do clash. Like these synth rips and synth sweeps clash with the Lyra, and I've already got a side chain to get that one out of the way. But I think what we might need to do on this time round is it might need to be the synth sweep goes, possibly, or something else. Maybe this fades in rather than coming in big. We'll try and see what happens. Okay, I think this is starting to sound pretty cool, but I'm just noticing when I look at this meter here, I use this quite a lot, that we're sitting in the red, so it means it's just not quite dynamic enough. I know a lot of drum and bass is really pushed. I just checked out here, we're at about minus 9 lufs, but it's good to have a little bit of more dynamics than that, so that when we start limiting a little bit later on, there's somewhere to go. So it'd be nice to add a little bit more space to this whole tune. Okay, so we're just about getting a little bit of orange back in the break, sometimes a bit of yellow. And I think when we add this snare layer, we'll get it back to being really punchy. So let's give that a try now. So hopefully you can see now, with a bit of work and just like adding dynamics to stuff, so turning stuff down, putting a little LFO on it, on the volume, and doing a whole bunch of stuff. The tune now is sitting in this yellow and orange, and that's where I've found it's a beautiful blend of loud enough for drum and bass and jungle, but dynamic and punchy enough that people want to listen to a 9-minute tune or whatever this is going to be, you know, because if it's crushed the whole time, people aren't going to want to listen to that for ages. They'll just be like, it's like too full on the whole time. So if you add a little bit of dynamics, just enough that you get into this yellow and orange, that's going to be sweet for the tune. Okay, so I'm starting to get to the point where I'm pretty happy with the blend of things, but the main thing I'm realizing right now is the arrangement, and this is all like just to help the tune, not just to criticize, but it's totally full the whole time. Sometimes there's a space for like intense tunes like that, but other times you just need some gaps. Okay, I know this is a bit bold and maybe this is too brutal on someone's tune, but I think it's what it needs. It turns out that's kind of actually the drop on 17, and if you take too much out, it just ruins it. So I just did a tiny bit of filtering so that 33 could be like another drop. But then I've got to be honest, I feel like this section, 65 to 97, if I'm not wrong, is just a copy of what happened before, but these sirens like evolve a little bit. But for me, it doesn't really feel like the tune develops in that section. Forgive me, Jay, just deleting bits of your tune, but I think it's for the best. Yeah, let's try it and see how it rolls. This reverb lead is such a sick sound and I definitely love it in the tune, but coming back with it on the drop, I feel like it isn't quite enough to go, oh yeah, cool, I'm ready to vibe to this again. What we really need to do, I think, is make a bit of an impact here with a bit of a statement, because this vocal going over the drop and all of these tools, they're kind of repeated a lot. So we need to find a way to make this new, but without having to add. So maybe we can subtract to find something really interesting that we can do to make it feel like, the tune's back again and we're we're ready. So let's see what's up, what we can try. I've got to be honest, I'm not sure if this is the second half of the tune or if this is just ideas. Yeah, there's just silence here for a bit, and I'm not sure if this isn't... Yeah, I'm just going to assume that this end bit is jamming out ideas and this isn't supposed to be part of the main project. But if it was supposed to be part of the tune, forgive me, I think I'm going to delete this bit because I think this will be a rocking tune. Like quick in, roll out and done by 4 minutes. I think that's going to be a killer tune, to be honest. Check out mattchapmanaudio.com for mixing and mastering, one-to-one music production blogs and exclusive content in the store. That's mattchapmanaudio.com. All right, I think we're starting to get there, but I just think in this last section here, it needs like some extra percussion and stuff just to keep things moving and developing. I'm going to try adding in a little bit of percussion and a couple of ideas. Okay, so I'm starting to get pretty happy with this. The last thing I want to check is just the mids and sides to make sure they're all doing what they should. So now it's just checking the whole mix in the sides to make sure it's all balanced. And I feel like it's a bit better now. Check this out. Alright, I think that's kind of where the tune should be. We've got -8 LUFS, which is moderately loud, not too loud, but like people could push it way further, but I'm not interested in that. I like dynamic music, and the mids and sides are pretty clean, the low, mids and highs are pretty clear, drums are punching, the arrangement's rapid, but it develops really well. I'm a bit worried that the tune that Jay originally sent was 9 minutes, and I'm sending back a 4:30 tune. You know, maybe they'll have something to say about that, but I just did what I thought was best for the tune, and I think this is totally killer now. I'd happily play this, I support this tune, you know, I think it's wonderful. But this is just what I did today, and I'd totally play this tune. Maybe we could finish with just hearing the tune out one time, and that'll be it for today. So listen, if you've watched this far, thank you so much, I appreciate you. And make sure to check out JB, and I'll link their Instagram or their music. This tune's called Fourth Kind, so you can go and be like, hey, give us a copy of that tune, man, you know, and try and get a dub or whatever. But I've loved working on this tune, and it is just so wonderful for people sending music in. So big shout out to JB. Fourth Kind is this tune, and yeah, I hope it goes somewhere, you know, or something happens with it. I'll keep going with the subscriber series, so if anybody's got any other tunes that they think will be right, get in contact. I'll see if it's right for the channel. And if you're interested in like mixing and mastering services so that I work on your tunes, hit me up on my website. Let's play this one out, and until next time, nice one.